The news. What a powerful piece of media that can shape and form our opinions on matters going on in the world. Now, imagine being in charge of the editing room and controlling what goes out to the people and having that mold the future of the world you live in. Sounds a little scary, doesn't it? Well, that's what Not for Broadcast does to the player. The basic mechanics of the game are that we control what picture goes out with these 4 buttons. If there are curse words, we bleep them, and if the signals are getting a little wonky, we try to get them back in line. The game also gives you a couple of tips, like don't stay on one shot for too long and cut to a reaction shot. Things like that. Sounds pretty simple, but it can get overwhelming quite quickly. We start off on election day, where this new group called Advance comes into power. Honestly, throughout this entire first broadcast, I was not paying attention to what anyone was saying. I was so focused on getting these buttons right and bleeping out curse words that I couldn't focus on what this dude was saying by the end of it. Day 1 ends with a B grade, and I thought it was pretty good to be honest, but I don't like how the game is calling me out for being broke-ass poor. While true, it doesn't mean they have to say it. The game then proceeds to ask me a bunch of questions about myself that most certainly won't have any effect on the future, right? Right? But then something weird happens on day 6. My partner's brother asked me for my passport, which I refused because that's a bit wild. If anyone else played this game, did they automatically say yes to this question? My first instinct was no, but he got mad at me like I was crazy for not giving him my whole passport. Either way, this won't have any consequences in the future, right? I get thrown into my next broadcast, which adds an option to choose a headline. I failed immediately because I simply did not pay attention to the instructions and failed to press A or B in time. Incredible, I know. In this segment, we meet Katie Brightman and Alan James, 2 people speaking about the country's political affairs and what that means for the world as we know it. Again, there's so much going on when it comes to making sure I'm operating this broadcast correctly, between switching cameras to who is talking and actually pressing the right button. I could hardly pay attention to what these 2 were saying. I honestly have no idea what they're talking about.
I can explain it to you, but unfortunately,
I was too busy panicking. Like, I had no idea what they were talking about. I was like, who's talking? Switch. Who's talking? Switch. I don't know what she said. It sounded like they were talking about the issues with Advance, but they both seemed to be on separate ends. Alan James with a much more negative and strong view against Advanced, and Katie Brightman with a much more middle-of-the-road view. And then we have whatever this was.
Who said middle-class girls can't rap? I ain't afraid of your cool raps. I'm a mother-loving rebel, but I still love maths.
I end the broadcast with an A grade, but they don't forget to tell me that I am indeed still broke-ass poor. Day 48 arrives, and now it's time for the Christmas party that is most definitely not awkward after I didn't let my brother-in-law take my passport. The most important thing that happens throughout the night is that my daughter asks me if she can go traveling, but everyone seems to forget that I am broke-ass poor. Regardless, I tell her that we will find a way to make it work. This most definitely will not backfire later. Right? Day 72 comes along and work asks me to go in even though it's my anniversary. I have the option to either ignore the message or go into work, and like the idiot that I am, I decided to go into work. My spouse gets mad at me, understandably so, and we head into day 98 after all of this, and I have this feeling. I feel like I'm picking the wrong choices. My son hands me a permission slip that will throw him into the advanced workforce. I tell him no, but given my previous decisions, Sam decides to sign the permission slip anyways. Pushing the door open, you find a letter in his bed. Dear Charles, thanks for returning your parental permission form. Sam Weston has given permission for you to join the positive and proactive team that is the Advanced Go-Getters. We look forward to you attending your first meeting. You'll be out and getting him in no time. Unbelievable. I really think I'm messing this whole thing up. My next broadcast is already up and running on day 153, where there is a storm brewing outside. Now, I didn't think too much of it at first, as I'm still trying to learn not to panic while playing the game. My new boss, Bozeman, said that I have to play this advanced advert, and while I'm a little apprehensive, I play it anyway. We also meet this Patrick Bannon, who most certainly will not get replaced later, and we do this very weird sports game that I honestly blanked out throughout the majority of. I know there were naked protests happening throughout, but I was just flailing at the keyboard trying to pick the right screen to cut to. And hey, we meet these 2 people again. Julia and Peter, who are the heads of Advance. They're on the news trying to convince the people that they are what's best for everybody. But something seems off about them. A little too corporate and uncomfortable if you ask me. But I can hardly pay attention to what they're saying because I'm too focused on the storm short-circuiting my controls and trying to bleep out this dude's curse words. The news signs out, and when I play the last commercial, a shock takes me out.
Good job, everybody.
The lockdown is the next broadcast we are running, and it seems like we are in a fever dream. There's these little toys that are jamming our signals, and I have to take them out before they mess up the broadcast. The entire broadcast just gets creepier and creepier with the sun changing into this cartoon thing, and then the toy making its way inside of the studio and making a complete mess of everything. The broadcast ends with a musical number with the newscaster singing about my life, and I didn't even realize it for a while. Wait, what? Are they talking about my life? Oh my god, she's talking about my life. I didn't realize she was talking about me. Okay. Bro! I didn't realize they were talking about my life. Get out. I didn't pay any attention at all. We hit day 154, and while my current wealth is holiday time, I am also currently in the hospital. On the bright side, my family is there, and it seems that our relationships are getting a bit better. Skip to day 180, and we have to make a hard decision of whether to send my mother to a home or spend money on a treatment for her. To be honest, I didn't even hesitate to spend money on a treatment. My wealth going down did not matter to me in the slightest. All the way to day 232, and now we meet this rapper named Jesus in our next broadcast. The game has had this mechanic of censoring curse words, but now you have the option to censor language that shows the government in a bad light. Curse words are in red, and government issues are in blue. As the player, you have the option to either censor Jesus's lyrics or not. I thought I had to, so I did. Day 242 rolls around and things start getting weird when my son Charlie tells us that he's part of this new program called the Cohesion Cadets, and it leaves a sense of unease throughout. Advance seems to be taking a step into everybody's lives when day 278 hits. They want us to have a specific type of ID in the form of an advanced team membership, to be able to buy groceries, and the police are not happy when we don't comply with this supposedly optional service. On to day 296, it would be just a normal broadcast, except now there's a heat wave. Not only do I have to focus on everything else that I was already doing with the broadcast, but now I have to make sure that the studio doesn't overheat. Little did I know that this is going to be a whole turning point for the game. The lead news anchor would turn this broadcast into a hostage situation.
You in the broadcast centre?
Yeah,
You in
it's
the
me.
broadcast centre? You listen to me, Alex. You pay attention. Listen to me. Now,
I'm paying attention.
I'm sure you've already loaded up exactly what you're going to pay in the commercial, but today's going to be a little bit different.
Got it.
Today's going to be a little bit different.
My right.
Yes, you're right. Look to your right. There's a VHS tape, and I want you to load it into a VHS tape. And when I say so, and not before, when I say so, play it. And not before. You've got about 15 seconds, so I wouldn't waste any time. About 15 seconds, so I wouldn't waste any time.
Alex, I assume you are playing that tape. This station does not negotiate with terrorists. I hope I've made myself clear. You seem to know what to do.
Every single thing that comes out of this studio is either one-sided or banal. We're going to show the other side or banal for a bit of fucking balance. A bit of fucking balance. Alex, play the fucking tape.
Alan James. Yes, this guy is revealed to be the leader of Disrupt, a rebel organization. Disrupt is an organization that wants to dismantle Advance because they believe Advance is infringing on the freedom of the people. After this, Jeremy is on a full-on breakdown, but he is bringing up very valid questions on the concerns for Advance as a government entity. But it all comes to a head when security is about to barge in and Jeremy says,
I loved them. And now, well...
God, Jeremy, don't!
Now, I've tried my best to be honest with you. I've tried my best. This just isn't the news anymore. And I've just isn't the news anymore. I've lost this fight.
Alex, think of the consequences.
I've let you down.
Please, we can't show this. Cut to the ads. Please, we can't show this. Cut
My
to the
name is
ads
Jeremy
now.
Donaldson.
"Ah! Was I supposed to finish that? I didn't feel right to finish that. I didn't feel right to finish."
And I'm here to
Jump to day 365, and we get a message update from our daughter who is traveling the world. She said she's headed to San Palmerino and is enjoying her time, which makes spending the money for her worth every penny. Right? In the next broadcast, the player has another option to change the signal to either show the normal broadcast news or to switch to Disrupt's broadcast to get their message out to the world. The choice is totally up to the player, and I let Disrupt have a voice in this. To be fair, it was either listen to what Disrupt has to say or listen to Little C talk for God knows how long.
So what will
What's the album about?
So I thought it was about like how pretty and great I am, but actually it's about monetizing youth, I think, or about like promoting an unrealistic standard of beauty or something.
Your manager again.
Yeah, he says insecurity is an opportunity. Ooh.
So the choice was easy, honestly. There's also this new segment on the news called The Notice Board, and well,
So you, a young person, have been spending your time helping others and not just urinating on churches or having glue.
Hey, I haven't huffed glue for months.
Blow me down!
it's something, that's for sure. Here I am blanking out through most of the segment when I suddenly realize there's commotion going on outside.
Oh, what the heck? Give us a hug.
There's an earthquake?
Sorry to interrupt
Bro?
you first.
This whole situation took a turn that I was not expecting at all. Like, I didn't know where this game was going, but I didn't think nuclear war was on the table.
Good evening, citizens
What the
and
heck?
leaders of the world.
Citizens and leaders of the world.
Minutes ago, operatives working for Advance detonated nuclear explosives simultaneously in 4 major cities across the continent.
What?
We have similar devices in 58 other
You're
urban
just
cities
threatening?
and will not hesitate to detonate.
And wait, did the news anchor just mention San Palomino?
And I should imagine that there are many of you sitting at home tonight digesting this news, and you also have loved ones on the continent. In Urkistan, or Havia, or San Palomino, or...
Bro, Susie! Day 371 arrives, and we find out Susie is actually dead to the nuclear weapons. We hold a funeral on day 380, and then jump all the way to day 713, where my job tries to make it very clear that we are under government control and we will not be speaking bad about them. Jumping all the way to day 850, my son tells me he's going to become a cadet officer. And well, let's just say that I spoke out against it, and he wasn't very happy about our conversation. We head into the next broadcast on day 912, where Alan James is talking to me through this walkie-talkie. He wants me to help start the revolution. Throughout the broadcast, he guides me to help spark the revolution. This includes playing a disrupt tape in place of the second ad, making certain decisions throughout the Peter Clement Memorial, where we once again meet Patrick Bannon as he makes some certain comments about Advance.
Listening to that old bitch lying through her teeth about missing that poor boss.
Patrick,
I don't know what I'm going to do.
we're live.
Because I'm not being funny. Things were better with Peter, weren't they? Because
Patrick?
They were, and I don't mind saying it. They were. Because he held her back. But now there's no stopping
Hello,
it.
Patrick, we're
Of
live.
course, can't say that, can I, Francis? No, not with public ownership. No, with public ownership, you can't say anything these days. She's lost it. She's completely off the rocker. I heard from an 8. Hello, Megan. You join me here live from the what? Hello, Megan. You join me here live from the what? Oh.
To which we then have some technical difficulties, and then we cut to Patrick Bannon again, and yep, that's the same old Patrick Bannon we knew. With the memorial in full swing, we have the option to make Peter Clement look good or bad. We get to shape the narrative. I chose to show him in a not so positive light, and when all hell breaks loose, I choose to show Advance negatively again. Well, to the best of my ability. The last piece of the puzzle is to censor on behalf of Disrupt to be able to launch a revolution. And at this point I'm in it, so I go ahead and follow along. It's getting a little close. I already felt a shake.
Let's make tomorrow better.
Damn it, Alex. Tonight is the beginning of the fall of Advance. Punch jet 11 o'clock. Charges reached, sir. Permission to detonate. Permission granted, old friend. We are going to detonate.
Bruh.
Look over your window, Alex. See what you helped make happen. She's coming down. Sir, up there.
Bro? After this broadcast, my job is understandably upset with me, and they grill me pretty hard about my decisions of censorship and other narratives that were being shown. I somehow weasel my way out of it, or so I thought. On day 989, I find out that my son is now not alive too. The only assumption at this point was that Advance and their suspicion of me played a big part in this. Advance killed both of my children and they expect me not to feel mad? The next broadcast is on day 1975, which is 3 years since the uprising. I think the one thing I really took from this day was the grasp that the Advance government had on the youth. When Stacy talks about what Advance has done for her, you really get a sense of that maybe it's not entirely evil and it might be a matter of perspective.
When Advance were first elected, 6 years ago, I was 9. 6 years ago, and in a home. I was 9. Not a family home like you call a home. This was a state children's home. It was a state children's home. It was fucking awful, actually. It was like a Charles Dickens book. The roof leaked and the walls were damp some mornings, and the food was bad. Drugs and alcohol were everywhere. No one cared. You had to watch your back all the time because there weren't enough staff to manage us. And yes, as you'd imagine, there was a lot of some bad stuff went down there with some of the staff. Not all of them, but the others knew. And they didn't stop it. And then Advance won the election. And like a miracle, things started to change. They got better. We had nicer food. The home was not just repaired, but redecorated and kitted out with books and sports stuff and musical instruments and video games. Most of the staff were fired, and the new ones, which there were more of, spent time talking and working with the bullies. And you know what? A second miracle. It worked. The bullying stopped. My life got better. Because finally, there was enough money to do the good things, and Advance had the guts to do it. I joined Go-Getters, and on Liberation Night, that gave me a group of friends that I could talk with when the bombs went off and the power went out. Another miracle. I wasn't alone anymore. And that was the night I finally understood the importance of being in a team. So here's my final thought. I know the people who were doing better under the old system long to go back. You say, we were freer. But what you mean is, we were richer. But for every one of you, there is 100 of me. And even now, after all you've had taken away, you are still doing better than I am, than I likely ever will. You still have homes of your own and families of your own who love you. And I'll never have that. So maybe you should stop looking for the worst interpretation of everything this amazing government does and realise it's not for you. It's for the millions like me.
But they also threw nuclear warfare, so I would say that's just inherently bad. Now, I'm not saying disrupt our angels or anything, but I feel like the game is telling me that everyone is too far on either side of the spectrum. As the days keep flying by, I reflect a little bit. Bro, did I make so many wrong decisions that 2 people are like, bro... 2 family members died. My mother's in a care home. Like, I did something wrong. But now we head into the finale. Everything seems to be calm at first. Don't look at how low the health bar is at this point. I hadn't played in a day and I kind of forgot the controls for a little bit and how much multitasking was involved. We go through a bunch of different segments and bring on Julia Salisbury, the leader of Advance, on air as well. But Alan James comes barging through the door and starts interrogating Julia. Then the one and only GOAT reveals himself. Thankfully, Jeremy is alive and well, and he's going to be the voice of reason throughout this entire broadcast. He lets all the hostages go and reveals some secrets of Advance that have never been heard before, like how Advance caused the population to go sterile. Advance claimed that the population was growing at an unsustainable rate, and Advance took matters into their own hands. When Alan James comes into the conversation, they immediately get into a heated argument.
I never wanted this.
So you covered it up and blame the sterility on the bombs.
Oh, please don't lecture me on morality, Mr. James. Your hands are far too dirty for that.
Disrupt only did what had to be done.
Disrupt are not the answer. You'll just take us to an even more extreme version of where we were before. Your miserable policies will kill us all.
I'm not the one who built the transition centres.
No, you're from a time where people didn't even have the basic right to choose how and when to die.
You turned children against their parents.
We enabled young people to speak up about the abuse that they were facing. And guess what? Most of that abuse came from within their own families.
Identity cards!
Grow up!
sterilised us against our will. Sterilised us against our will.
Throughout this entire situation, you can see how extreme both of these parties are. Jeremy has a video that shows who is really behind Disrupt, and I don't know how much more there is to say about them because they are most certainly horrible and vile, and that's being nice about it. Jeremy and Megan take on the final sign-off and urge the people to think for themselves and do something within their capability to make meaningful change.
Before we go tonight, there's so much to digest here. What's happened tonight in this political circus.
The tent is collapsing and the ringmasters have lost their glitter.
There will be elections. Soon, I'd imagine. You'll be able to choose.
These two will run. A choice between a shit sandwich and a cold cup of soup. A circus of options.
Two extremes, both offering their own form of misery.
You can choose advance and be equal.
In cages, like performing lions.
Or disrupt and be free.
To struggle and starve.
Or you can do something different. You can run. You can stand. You can stop promoting the way things are and change it.
You're good people, and you are sensible people. You know the difference between right and wrong.
So stop whinging and do something. Take responsibility, because if you don't, it'll all be left to these clowns.
And that's the worst circus of all.
My name's Jeremy Dawson.
And I'm Megan Wall.
Whoops, I'm sorry, Jeremy.
A transformative night.
And then make tomorrow better.
Let him know. Apparently, there are 14 epilogues, and the one I received was called The Accord, where a centrist party takes control of the government, and Disrupt and Advance couldn't even get 10% of the vote combined. Overall, the game was really interesting. I'll admit there were a lot of times where I was not paying attention because there was so much going on in the beginning that I had to learn to multitask pretty quickly, but it's a game that I would recommend if you like feeling stressed, or if you like replaying to really get all the details and all the possible endings.